We're all familiar with cults founded by some charismatic leader who predict that the world is going to end on a specific date, and then they go on to reorder their whole lives, radically reorder their whole lives around that prediction. And then when that date comes and goes, the end time doesn't happen on that date, many of these believers, these adherents, these enthusiasts, continue to believe in their failed leader despite the massive disconnect between what they prophesied and what actually took place. Many times these leaders will say that they miscalculated slightly and then go on to set a whole new date. But despite all the overwhelming evidence to the contrary, some people continue to believe. This is known as cognitive dissonance, and it's one very powerful way skeptical scholars use to explain the resurrection. As they put it, the crucifixion crushed all the disciples' hopes in Jesus, and it created this dissonance, this disconnect between their belief that he was God's anointed and his utter defeat, which signaled that he was cursed by God. Confronted with these facts, most of them have simply lost all faith in him. However, social psychology, especially in its investigations into these end-time cults, suggests that at least some of Jesus' disciples wouldn't have been able to accept his defeat. On the subconscious level, their subconscious minds would have done their best to resolve the dissonance, the disconnect between what they believed him to be and the facts on the ground. And desperate to cling to their hopes in him, they might even have subconsciously projected hallucinatory visions of him appearing from the dead. So the resurrection is nothing more than a classic example of cognitive dissonance. Case closed. Except one small thing: no such dissonance ever existed. See, one of the things that scholars of all stripes, whether they're skeptical or believer, agree upon most about Jesus, the historical Jesus, is that he presented himself as the eschatological, a fancy word for end time, the eschatological prophet or agent of God. In other words, Jesus taught his disciples that through his life and ministry, the age to come, what we usually think of as the end time or the second coming, the age to come was about to take place. Many scholars go on to say that Jesus probably in some way alluded to or even explicitly predicted that he would even have to suffer and possibly die before all this took place, before the end time happened. So even though the crucifixion delivered a crushing blow to these disciples, any one of them with a little bit of effort could have easily adapted their belief in Jesus by seeing the cross simply as one of the events that signaled the end time was about to take place. Without much problem, they could have transferred all their hope to his imminent return, to his coming again when he, along with everybody else, would be resurrected. In other words, there is no good reason to think that any of these disciples ever experienced any cognitive dissonance. In fact, the resurrection, belief in the resurrection, would have created a far greater dissonance for them. For Jews in Jesus' day, the resurrection was something that was only possible at the end of the age to come, and when it would happen to everybody at once. The idea that an individual could be resurrected before this time, an individual prior to this end time could be resurrected, would have been as intelligible to these disciples as a square circle. So for any one of these disciples who happened to be clinging to their faith in Jesus in the wake of the crucifixion, the belief in the resurrection would have been completely superfluous. It added nothing and complicated everything. And here's why all this matters. Since resurrection means the return to life of the body along with the soul, but it includes a bodily component, the body comes back to life, only a verifiably empty tomb and overwhelmingly physical appearances would ever compel these disciples to inject such an unnecessary and unintelligible belief as resurrection into the mix. This, witnessing an individual resurrected prior to the end time, is the only cognitive dissonance the disciples experienced. I love hearing your comments and questions. You can go to the Contact EJ page of the Raising Jesus website and leave them there. I'd love to hear from you. Also, if you haven't had a chance to yet, please like our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel. I truly appreciate all the support all of you have been giving me. Thank you.